Do you want a soup of bread bowl? Do you want soup in a bread bowl? Yeah, right. What is that? Let's do it.
We are gonna hop right to it this week. Soup in a goddamn bread bowl. Recipes for today will be in the description below, and you'll quickly learn here that I'm gonna be changing some things around to accommodate a better finished product. In the background here, I'm making the dough for the bread, and I will be greasing the bowl and letting it sit in a warm place for about 90 minutes to rise. You can do this part by hand or in the stand mixer. You're really just looking for your finished dough to look right about like this coming up. To have a little bit of give back when you press it. Nice and supple and smooth to the touch. Not too much stickiness. So turn this out onto a floured surface. And then I'm going to just gather it all together in my hands so that it's one big smooth ball. And then I'm going to place it into this olive oil grease bowl. So look at that. Give it a quick turn. Get all of the seams essentially on the bottom. And before you set it aside to rise for about 90 minutes, you're just gonna turn it over in the grease bowl. Make sure you get both sides of your dough. I have my oven already on and preheating, so I'm just gonna move it to sit on the top here, next to this plate that I ate a bagel off of while I was doing this. The bread bowls take a little while, so got a snack mid-filming. I am making two soups here, both that we usually get at the Ren Fair. Broccoli cheddar and a loaded baked potato. The good thing for me is that both of them have very similar ingredients. I could take the soup base up to a point and then separate it out into like two halves and then finish those halves with their specific ingredients. I'm kind of really just like riffing on these two recipes that I found. So like just looked up a broccoli cheddar and looked up a loaded baked potato from some websites that I trust to have done their research and have done an iota of testing. And knowing that their recipes are decent, I know that it's a good place to start. In the background here, you can see that I'm just processing vegetables, breaking down broccoli, separating the stems, cutting onions and garlic, and peeling and cubing my Yukon Gold potatoes. I'm also going to shred about 8 ounces of cheddar cheese to throw in this soup. The great thing about soups like this is that it's really hard to mess up, and that's why I'm able to just kind of wing it here. Soups are a great catch-all for a fridge clean out, and also why you see them all the times as specials at restaurants. As I build a good soup, I'm mostly looking to build flavor layer by layer, so that the end product may be a simple looking soup, but it's got tons of character from lots of layering of flavors, onions, garlic, spices, get them all in at different times. There's nothing wrong with having a very plain soup and then garnishing it with lots of fun things. The loaded baked potato that we're going to be making here, I'm going to make it pretty plain. It's going to have just mostly potatoes in it and these broccoli stalks. But later on, I'm going to throw a bunch of things in it like bacon and herbs that will make it a nice finish. And this is kind of how restaurants do things. They, have that simple base and then they make it fun, like right at the last minute. Right here I am covering my veggies with vegetable stock and water just until it covers the veggies. I'm gonna let that simmer for 30 minutes or until the potatoes are fork tender. All right, time to punch down our bread. We want this bread to have a nice tight crumb with no huge air bubbles so that it can hold the soup really well. I punch it down, and then we're going to separate it into 6 even portions, and then re-rolling and letting them sit out for another 30 minutes to rise again. In my haste here, I didn't grease the plastic wrap I covered it with, but that's no biggie because we are going to cut off most of the tops anyway. Now, if you wanted to control the height of these breads, I'd want to put a collar of some sort around the bottom at this stage, just to make sure it didn't spread out as it re-rose and during the baking. Also, make sure, grease everything, grease the collar. I make that mistake a couple times here. You can make a little collar out of aluminum foil or using a dough cutter if it's large enough. Alright, our soup base is ready, and like I said before, I'm gonna separate it into 2 halves best I can. The broccoli cheddar needs more liquid than my potato, so I'm gonna try and lead off a little more liquid for that one, and we'll probably add a little bit of water. Now it's time to add in my broccoli. I want a bright green soup, so my broccoli is chopped up pretty small. That way it cooks inside of the soup base pretty fast and retains its green color. If you cook it for too long, it's gonna lose a lot of that green coloring. Kind of like how you blanch spinach real fast to keep its color. I'm gonna cook it in that liquid for about 3 minutes, and then I'm gonna transfer it to my blender to get the texture super smooth. This is a great spot to see how thin your soup is and adjust. If I think my soup is too thin, I'm gonna hold back some of the broth in it, and as I puree it, I dial it in. Once it's all pureed, you can always add more liquid. It's much harder to take it away, so work in baby steps if need be. Once it's all pureed, I'm gonna move it back to the pot and add my seasonings. Cheese and Greek yogurt. The yogurt is gonna up the creaminess of this soup, as well as add a little hint of tanginess. This is also the part where you want to be constantly tasting. Add some ingredients, taste, and then adjust. Working in baby steps if you're unfamiliar with what it needs. Just like liquid, it's really hard to take too much salt out of a soup. With our broccoli cheddar soup situated, we can move on to the potato. I am using an immersion blender for this one because I desire a little more texture in this soup. I don't exactly want it all perfectly pureed like our broccoli soup is. Once again, I am tasting, adjusting, and adding what is needed based off of that taste. These soups are now what I would call restaurant finished, which means you can chill them and store them in your fridge, and then when you are reheating them, you can fancy them up with more ingredients and add fresh herbs. Always fresh herbs at the end. You don't want them sitting and wilting inside of your soup. It'll only go bad faster. My breads have been sitting on the counter for 30 minutes and are gonna get an egg wash before hitting the oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit. Come out looking nice and beautiful. Like I said, tops don't necessarily matter. You can score them, you can not score them. They're just gonna get cut off anyway and chewed up as snacks while we're assembling. So, did you think I was gonna leave these bread bowls plain? Nah, dog. We gotta be better than the Renaissance Fair. So, we're gonna make these bread bowls garlic bread for the loaded baked potato and extra cheddar for the broccoli cheddar. Like I said before, it's all about layering our flavors, and when I see a blank canvas like these breads, I'm gonna paint that shit with flavor. Okay, simple garlic bread technique. Take your room temperature butter, add a couple cloves of pressed garlic, some herbs and some salt, and then mash the whole thing together. If your butter is still stiff, you can microwave a little bit of it and throw it into the colder stuff so that your end result is spreadable. With our butter made, we can go ahead and hollow out our breads and then spread the butter all over the inside and along the rim of the bread. We're also gonna grate some more cheddar cheese on the inside of the one that we're gonna use for broccoli cheddar. These are gonna go back into the oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for about 8 minutes so that the garlic can cook and the cheese on the cheddar cheese one will melt and get a nice and crispy. All of this will also firm up the outside of the bread so that it holds the soup even better. As you can see, nice and crispy. With our bread bowls all set and ready to go, it's time to fancy things up. So I'm gonna thinly slice some scallions and some jalapenos. I'm gonna chop up some parsley, render off some bacon bits over a low flame. And also off camera, I didn't catch this, I charred up some broccoli florets in a dry skillet. Feel free to garnish these with whatever you desire. Make some infused oil to drizzle on top, or like a fancy flavored crema. This is the fun part, so go nuts. Time to plate these bad boys up. I highly suggest making this part a fun family thing where there's tons of different garnishes and everyone can pick what they like and garnish their own bread bowl how they want. The finished product was so good. I barely needed a spoon to eat it all. I just tore off pieces and kind of just used those as the spoon. I suppose it wouldn't be Renaissance fair food if you didn't get really messy while eating it, right? Well, that'll do it for this week. Come back next week for the one you've all been waiting for, turkey legs. If you like this video, please like and subscribe. I put out videos every week. Thank you for watching, have a magnificent day, and may your quest for food knowledge be bountiful.